"Can I sit here?" Black single mom asked. "Only if you eat too," the millionaire replied. The small cafe near downtown was unusually full that afternoon. Rain tapped gently against the windows as people sipped coffee and chatted in hushed tones. At the entrance stood Janelle Brooks, a young black single mom in her late 20s. Her coat was damp, her hair slightly frizzed from the drizzle. Holding her little boy's hand, Caleb, just 3 years old, she scanned the room for a place to sit. "Mommy, my leg's tired," the boy murmured, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Janelle sighed softly, glancing around until her eyes landed on a corner table where a man sat alone, tall, sharply dressed, laptop open, phone buzzing beside his untouched meal. Gathering her courage, she walked over. "Excuse me," she said politely. "Would you mind if we sit here for a bit? Everywhere else is full." The man looked up. His expression softened when he saw the child clutching his mother's coat. "Only if you eat too," he replied with a faint smile, closing his laptop. "Oh, we're fine," she said quickly. "I just need somewhere to sit until—" He raised a hand, signaling the waitress. "2 hot chocolates and something warm for them, please." She hesitated, embarrassed, but before she could protest, her little boy piped up. "Hot chocolate, Mommy." The man chuckled quietly. "See, he agrees with me." Before we go deeper into this story, I want you to drop a comment telling me where you are watching from and what time is it. If you are new to our channel, kindly hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Janelle Brooks stood in the doorway of the Riverside Cafe, water dripping from her worn coat onto the tiled floor, and felt the familiar weight of exhaustion settle deeper into her bones. It was Tuesday afternoon, her supposed day off from the grocery store where she worked the morning shift before her evening cleaning job at the office building downtown. She'd planned to spend these precious hours with Caleb, maybe take him to the library for story time or the small park near their apartment if the weather cooperated. But the weather hadn't cooperated. The drizzle that had started during their bus ride had turned into steady rain, and Caleb's little legs had given out halfway to the library. He'd started crying, saying he was tired and cold, and Janelle had spotted the cafe and made a split-second decision to duck inside just to rest for a moment, to let her baby warm up before continuing their journey. Now, scanning the packed cafe, Janelle felt self-conscious about her damp clothes, her frizzing hair that she hadn't had time to properly style this morning, the way Caleb's jacket was slightly too small because she couldn't afford to replace it even though he'd grown. Everyone here looked put together, professional, like they belonged in this nice cafe with its artisan coffee and gourmet sandwiches. She and Caleb were clearly out of place. "Mommy, my leg's tired," Caleb whimpered again, tugging on her hand. "I know, baby. Just give Mama a minute to find somewhere to sit, okay?" But there was nowhere. Every table was occupied, business people on laptops, students with textbooks spread out, groups of friends laughing over lattes. Janelle was about to give up and leave when she spotted a corner table where a man sat alone. He was clearly wealthy, expensive suit, designer watch she could see even from across the room, the kind of effortless, put-together appearance that came from money and status. He was the last person Janelle wanted to approach, certain he'd look at her with judgment or dismiss her rudely. But Caleb was shivering slightly, his little face tired and sad, and maternal desperation overrode pride. Janelle walked over, keeping her voice polite and apologetic. "Excuse me, would you mind if we sit here for a bit? Everywhere else is full." The man looked up from his laptop, and Janelle braced for rejection or irritation, but instead, his expression softened immediately when he saw Caleb clutching her coat. "Only if you eat too," he said with a faint smile, closing his laptop without hesitation. "Oh, we're fine," Janelle said quickly, not wanting charity, already feeling embarrassed about intruding. "I just need somewhere to sit until the rain lets up a bit. We won't bother you." The man raised his hand, catching the attention of a passing waitress. "2 hot chocolates and something warm for them, please. Maybe grilled cheese for the little one?" "Sir, that's really not necessary," Janelle protested, mortification rising. "We didn't come here to—" "Hot chocolate, Mommy," Caleb interrupted with sudden excitement, his tired face brightening at the mention of his favorite treat. The man chuckled quietly. See, he agrees with me. Please, sit. I insist. Janelle hesitated, pride warring with the reality that Caleb was cold and hungry, and she'd spent her last $20 on groceries yesterday. Finally, she nodded and helped Caleb into the chair across from the stranger, settling into the seat beside her son. Thank you, Janelle said quietly. This is very kind of you. I'm Janelle, and this is Caleb. Adrian, the man replied, offering his hand. Adrian Cole, and it's my pleasure. I was eating alone anyway, company is welcome. As they waited for the food, Adrian asked gentle questions about Caleb, how old he was, whether he liked preschool, what his favorite things were. Caleb, usually shy with strangers, responded with surprising openness, telling Adrian about his favorite cartoon, the stuffed dinosaur he slept with, how his mama read him stories every night before bed. Your mama sounds like she takes good care of you, Adrian observed, smiling at Caleb. Mama's the best, Caleb declared with 3-year-old certainty. She works really hard. Janelle felt her throat tighten. Out of the mouths of babes, her baby understood more than she realized about their struggles. Caleb, that's not really something we need to talk about with. It's okay, Adrian said gently. Working hard is admirable. What do you do, Janelle? I work at a grocery store, Janelle said, keeping her voice neutral. Morning shifts mostly. And I clean offices in the evenings. She waited for judgment, for the subtle condescension she'd experienced countless times when middle-class or wealthy people learned about her circumstances. But Adrian just nodded thoughtfully. 2 jobs while raising a young child alone must be incredibly demanding. How do you manage childcare? My neighbor watches Caleb during my evening shifts, Janelle explained. She's elderly and can't do it every night, so sometimes I have to bring him with me and let him sleep on the break room couch while I clean. It's not ideal, but it's what works for now. The waitress arrived with their order, 2 steaming mugs of hot chocolate topped with whipped cream, a grilled cheese sandwich cut into triangles for Caleb, and a bowl of tomato soup. Caleb's eyes went wide with delight. This is too much, Janelle protested weakly. It's just lunch, Adrian said. Please, eat. You both look like you could use something warm. As Caleb dove into his grilled cheese with enthusiasm, Janelle sipped her hot chocolate and felt warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with the temperature of the drink. When was the last time someone had shown her this kind of uncomplicated kindness? When had anyone looked at her and Caleb and seen people worthy of care rather than problems to be ignored? Can I ask you something? Adrian said after a few moments of comfortable silence. And please tell me if I'm overstepping, but why are you working 2 jobs? Is Caleb's father not providing support? Janelle's expression hardened slightly. Caleb's father left when I told him I was pregnant, made it very clear he wanted nothing to do with either of us. I haven't heard from him since Caleb was born. So, no support from that direction. I'm sorry, Adrian said, and he sounded genuinely sympathetic rather than pitying. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was, Janelle admitted, but I had my son, and that was worth everything. Caleb is the best thing that ever happened to me, even if the circumstances weren't ideal. They talked while Caleb ate, the conversation flowing more easily than Janelle would have expected with a complete stranger. Adrian asked about her goals, her dreams before life had taken its difficult turn. Janelle found herself sharing things she rarely told anyone, how she'd been in college, studying early childhood education when she'd gotten pregnant, how she'd had to drop out when her parents had disowned her for keeping the baby, how she'd been working service jobs ever since trying to save enough to eventually finish her degree. Early childhood education, Adrian repeated thoughtfully. So you love working with children? I do, Janelle said, smiling as she watched Caleb happily dipping his sandwich in the soup. Kids are amazing, honest, joyful, resilient. I always wanted to teach preschool, to help shape young minds during their most formative years. That dream feels pretty distant now, but maybe someday when Caleb's older and I've saved enough, I can go back to school. Why wait? Adrian asked. Because college costs money I don't have, Janelle said with practiced matter-of-factness. And time I don't have. Working 2 jobs while raising Caleb alone doesn't leave room for much else. Before Adrian could respond, Caleb reached for his hot chocolate and knocked it over, the brown liquid spilling across the table and onto Adrian's pristine white shirt sleeve. Caleb's face crumpled immediately. "Oh no, sorry," he whimpered, tears starting to form. "I didn't mean to." Janelle grabbed napkins frantically, mortification flooding through her. "I'm so sorry, sir." "Caleb, baby, it's okay. Accidents happen. Let me help clean that." But Adrian was already smiling at Caleb, wiping the spill gently. "Hey, buddy, it's just a sleeve. You're fine, no crying, okay? It was an accident. Accidents happen. You're not mad?" Caleb asked in a small voice. "Not even a little bit," Adrian assured him. "Look, I'll order you another hot chocolate. This time we'll put it farther from the edge so it's safer, okay?" Janelle watched in amazement as Adrian handled the situation with such patience and grace. Most people would have been irritated about an expensive shirt getting stained, but Adrian treated Caleb with genuine kindness, more concerned about the child's feelings than his own clothing. "You're really good with kids," Janelle observed after Adrian had ordered a replacement hot chocolate and Caleb had calmed down. "Do you have children?" "No," Adrian said, something wistful crossing his face. "I've always wanted them, but my career took priority for a long time. I built a construction company from the ground up, which required years of complete focus. By the time I looked up and realized I wanted a family, I hadn't built the personal relationships that lead to that. So here I am at 41, successful in business, but lacking in the family department." "41 isn't old," Janelle said. "You have plenty of time to build a family if that's what you want." "Maybe," Adrian said, "but it requires meeting the right person, which is harder than it sounds when you're wealthy. People see the money first, the person second. It's difficult to trust whether someone's interested in you or your bank account." Janelle understood that conceptually, though her problem was the opposite. People often dismissed her worth because of her lack of money rather than being attracted to her because of it. "That must be lonely," she said sincerely. "It is," Adrian admitted, "which is why this," he gestured to their table, to the conversation they'd been having, "is actually really nice. You're talking to me like I'm just another person, not like I'm a potential opportunity or a walking wallet. That's rare and refreshing." "Well, you are just another person," Janelle said. "A unusually kind person who bought lunch for strangers, but still just a person. Money doesn't change that fundamental fact." Adrian smiled, something warm in his expression. "You'd be surprised how many people don't understand that truth. Janelle, I know this might sound strange given that we just met, but I have a proposition for you." Janelle tensed slightly, hoping this wasn't heading where desperate situations sometimes led wealthy men offering to help in exchange for compromising favors. "What kind of proposition?" "My company needs a receptionist," Adrian said. "Someone to answer phones, greet clients, manage scheduling, handle basic administrative tasks. It's entry-level, but it pays significantly better than grocery work, has normal business hours so you wouldn't need a night job, and includes benefits like health insurance and childcare assistance. Would you be interested?" Janelle stared at him, trying to process whether this was real or some kind of elaborate joke. "You're offering me a job? We just met 20 minutes ago." "I'm offering you an interview," Adrian clarified. "But yes, if the interview goes well and you're interested in the position, I'd be happy to hire you." "Janelle, I can tell you're intelligent, hardworking, and responsible. You're raising a child alone while working 2 jobs, and somehow you're still kind and gracious rather than bitter. Those are exactly the qualities I want in someone representing my company." "I don't have recent office experience," Janelle said, hope and skepticism warring in her chest. "I've been working retail and cleaning for 3 years. My resume isn't impressive." "Experience can be taught," Adrian said. "Character can't. I'd rather hire someone with your work ethic and values than someone with a fancy resume, but no integrity." "Why are you doing this?" Janelle asked bluntly. "You don't know me. I could be a terrible employee. This could all blow up in your face." Adrian was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "Honestly, because sitting here talking with you and Caleb is the first time in months I've felt genuinely connected to other people. Most of my interactions are transactional business deals, networking events, professional relationships that have little depth. But you reminded me what authentic human connection feels like. And because I have resources that could make your life significantly easier, and using those resources to help someone who genuinely needs it, makes me feel like my success actually matters for something beyond just accumulating more money. Janelle felt tears threatening. When was the last time someone had seen her struggle and offered genuine help rather than judgment or empty platitudes? That's incredibly generous. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, Adrian suggested. He pulled a business card from his wallet and wrote something on the back. This is my direct office line and my personal cell. Call me if you're interested in learning more about the position. No pressure, no expectations, just an option if you want it. Janelle took the card with trembling fingers. Adrian Cole, CEO, Cole Construction Group. The elegant lettering, the substantial paper stock, everything about it screamed success and wealth. And this man was offering her a lifeline when she'd asked for nothing more than a place to sit. Thank you, Janelle whispered. For lunch, for the conversation, for the kindness to Caleb, for seeing us as people worth caring about. You have no idea how much that means. Thank you for the company, Adrian said warmly. Like I said, this was the best conversation I've had in a long time. When Janelle tried to pay for their food, Adrian refused firmly. Let's call it, even you gave me company. I didn't realize how quiet my world's been lately. As Janelle and Caleb prepared to leave, the rain had slowed to a light drizzle. Caleb suddenly turned back to Adrian. Bye, Mr. Adrian. Thank you for the hot chocolate. You're very welcome, Caleb, Adrian said, smiling. Take care of your mama, okay? She's pretty special. I know, Caleb said seriously. She's the best mama in the whole world. As Janelle and Caleb walked out of the cafe and back into the gray afternoon, Janelle clutched Adrian's business card like it was precious. Part of her insisted this was too good to be true, that she should be skeptical of wealthy strangers offering opportunities that seemed too perfect. But another part, the part that had just experienced genuine kindness from someone who expected nothing in return, whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was real. That night, after putting Caleb to bed in their small apartment, Janelle sat at her kitchen table staring at Adrian's card. She'd looked up Cole Construction Group online and had been shocked to discover just how successful Adrian was. His company had built half the major developments in the city over the past 15 years, employed hundreds of people, was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And this man had sat with her and her son, bought them lunch, treated them with respect and kindness, offered her a job that could transform their circumstances. Pride whispered that she shouldn't accept charity, that relying on a wealthy stranger was dangerous, that she should make it on her own. But practicality countered that pride didn't pay bills or put food on the table, that working 2 jobs while barely seeing her son was unsustainable, that opportunities like this didn't come along often, and refusing it would be foolish. Janelle picked up her phone several times that night. Adrian's number entered, but the call not made. Each time, doubt stopped her. What if this was a mistake? What if she was misreading his intentions? What if she got the job, and then it fell apart and she was left worse off than before? She didn't call that night, or the next day. Pride and fear kept her silent even as she went through her exhausting routine morning shift at the grocery store, racing to pick up Caleb from the neighbor who watched him, playing with him for a few precious hours, then her evening cleaning shift while Caleb slept on the break room couch wrapped in blankets she kept in her car for that purpose. 2 weeks after meeting Adrian, everything fell apart in a single morning. Janelle's regular babysitter, Mrs. Chen, the elderly neighbor who'd been watching Caleb, called at 6 a.m. to say she'd fallen and hurt her hip, couldn't watch Caleb for the foreseeable future. Panic had flooded through Janelle. She had no backup childcare, no money to pay for a daycare, no options except to call in sick to work. But she'd already called in sick twice that month when Caleb had a fever and she'd had no one to watch him. Her manager had made it very clear that another absence would result in termination. So Janelle had made the desperate decision to bring Caleb with her to work, hoping her manager would understand just this once until she could figure out alternative arrangements. It had been a disaster from the moment they arrived. Caleb, confused and cranky about the early hour and strange environment, had been fussy. He'd cried when Janelle had to leave him in the break room to stock shelves. He'd wandered onto the floor looking for her, startling customers. And when Janelle's manager, Mr. Peterson, had discovered what was happening, he'd exploded. "This is completely unprofessional," Peterson had shouted in the middle of the store, customers staring as Janelle stood there holding Caleb, who was crying from the scary, loud voice. "I told you no more absences, so instead you bring your kid to work. Are you serious? Do you have any idea how inappropriate this is?" "I'm so sorry, Mr. Peterson," Janelle had said, trying to keep her voice steady even as humiliation burned through her. "My regular babysitter had an emergency and I had no other options. It won't happen again, I promise. I'll figure something out for tomorrow." "There won't be a tomorrow," Peterson had snapped. "You're fired, Janelle. Clear out your locker and leave. I can't have employees who can't maintain basic professional standards." "Please," Janelle had begged, pride gone in the face of desperation. "I need this job. I have a child to support. I'll find childcare. I'll never bring him again. Please just give me one more chance." "My decision is final," Peterson had said coldly. "Leave now or I'll have security escort you out." Janelle had walked out of that grocery store holding her crying son, her own tears streaming silently down her face, completely unsure how she was going to pay rent, or buy food, or survive. She still had her cleaning job, but that paid even less than the grocery work and didn't come close to covering their basic expenses. That night, after putting an exhausted Caleb to bed, Janelle sat on her couch in the dark and cried deep, wrenching sobs born of exhaustion and fear and the crushing weight of trying to survive alone with no safety net. She'd been working so hard, doing everything she could, and it still wasn't enough. One childcare crisis and her entire fragile life structure had collapsed. At her lowest point, Janelle remembered Adrian's card, still tucked in her wallet where she'd kept it these past 2 weeks. She pulled it out, staring at it in the dim light from the street lamp outside her window. This was her last option. Pride didn't matter anymore. Only survival mattered. Only Caleb mattered. With shaking hands, Janelle dialed the number Adrian had written on the back of his card, his personal cell, he'd said. It rang twice, and Janelle almost hung up, convinced he wouldn't remember her or wouldn't answer or this was all a terrible idea. Then his voice came through, warm and instantly recognizable. "Janelle? Adrian?" she managed, her voice hoarse from crying. "I don't know if you remember me, but we met at the cafe 2 weeks ago. You offered, you said, if I ever needed." Her voice broke, unable to finish. "I remember you perfectly," Adrian said, his tone shifting immediately to concern. "Janelle, what's wrong? Are you okay? Is Caleb okay?" "I need help," Janelle admitted, the words tasting like failure but also like relief. "You offered me a job interview. Is that offer still open? Because I just got fired from my grocery job for bringing Caleb to work when my babysitter had an emergency, and I don't know how I'm going to pay rent or feed my son, and I'm scared, and I have nowhere else to turn." "Yes," Adrian said immediately. "The offer is absolutely still open. Janelle, can you come to my office tomorrow morning? Bring Caleb if you need to. We'll talk about the receptionist position, and we'll figure this out. You're not alone, okay? Help is available. You just have to accept it." "Thank you," Janelle whispered, fresh tears flowing, but now from gratitude rather than despair. "Thank you so much." "Thank you for calling," Adrian said gently. "I'm glad you reached out. Now get some rest. Tomorrow we'll work on solutions. Everything's going to be okay, Janelle. I promise." After hanging up, Janelle sat in the dark, holding her phone, feeling the first flicker of hope she'd experienced in weeks. Maybe Adrian was right. Maybe everything would be okay. Maybe accepting help wasn't weakness but wisdom. Maybe this stranger who'd shown kindness to her and her son in a cafe would actually follow through with the lifeline he'd offered. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something that would change their lives in ways Janelle couldn't yet imagine. The next morning, Janelle woke before dawn with nervous energy coursing through her body. She'd barely slept, her mind racing between hope and anxiety about the meeting with Adrian. She dressed in her one professional outfit, a simple black skirt and white blouse she'd worn to job interviews years ago, hoping they still looked presentable despite being slightly dated. She styled her natural hair as best she could with limited products and time, applied minimal makeup, and woke Caleb gently. "Where we going, Mama?" Caleb asked sleepily as she dressed him in his nicest clothes, a button-down shirt and khaki pants she'd found at a thrift store. "We're going to visit Mr. Adrian," Janelle explained, keeping her voice cheerful despite her nerves. "Remember the nice man from the cafe who bought you hot chocolate? He wants to talk to Mama about a job. I need you to be on your very best behavior, okay, baby?" "Okay, Mama," Caleb agreed, still half asleep but cooperative. They took 2 buses to reach Cole Construction Group's headquarters, a gleaming glass and steel building in the downtown business district that made Janelle feel even more out of place. The lobby was all marble and modern art, with impeccably dressed people moving purposefully through the space. Janelle approached the reception desk, with Caleb's hand clutched tightly in hers. "I'm Janelle Brooks," she told the receptionist, a polished woman in her 50s. "I have a 9 o'clock appointment with Mr. Cole." The receptionist's eyebrows rose slightly. Apparently Adrian didn't typically meet with people at 9 a.m. on a Friday, or maybe she was surprised by Janelle's appearance and the presence of a small child. But she recovered quickly and picked up her phone. "Mr. Cole, Miss Brooks is here to see you." A pause. "Yes, sir. I'll send her up." The receptionist directed Janelle to the elevator bank. "Top floor, executive suite. Mr. Cole's assistant will meet you there." As the elevator rose, Janelle's anxiety intensified. What was she doing here? She was a single mother with a high school diploma and years of service jobs on her resume, about to interview for a position at a major company run by a millionaire CEO. This was absurd. Adrian would realize he'd made a mistake offering her this opportunity. She should just leave before embarrassing herself further. But then the elevator doors opened, and Adrian's assistant, a kind-faced woman named Patricia, was greeting her warmly. "Miss Brooks, welcome. Mr. Cole is expecting you." "And who's this handsome young man?" "This is my son, Caleb," Janelle said. "Mr. Cole said I could bring him. I hope that's okay. I didn't have childcare on such short notice." "Of course it's okay," Patricia assured her. "We have a nice break room with some toys if Caleb wants to play while you and Mr. Cole talk. Would you like that, Caleb?" Caleb looked to his mother for permission. Janelle nodded. "It's okay, baby. I'll be right nearby, I promise." Patricia led them down a hallway to a spacious break room where several toys and children's books were set up in one corner. "We keep these for staff members who occasionally bring children to work," Patricia explained. "Caleb will be perfectly safe here. I'll stay with him while you meet with Mr. Cole." "You will?" Janelle asked, surprised. "That's very kind, but I don't want to impose on your time." "Nonsense," Patricia said warmly. "It's my pleasure. Besides, Mr. Cole specifically asked me to help with childcare during your interview. He wants you to be able to focus without worrying about your son." Janelle felt tears threatening again at this simple kindness. "Thank you," she managed. Adrian's office was at the end of the hall, a large corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering stunning city views. Adrian stood as Janelle entered, coming around his desk to greet her warmly. "Janelle, thank you for coming. Please, sit down. Can I get you coffee, water, anything?" "Water would be nice," Janelle said, her mouth dry from nerves. Adrian poured water from a pitcher on the side table and handed it to her before settling into the chair beside hers rather than behind his imposing desk. A subtle gesture that made Janelle feel less like a supplicant and more like an equal. "How are you doing?" Adrian asked with genuine concern. "Yesterday on the phone you sounded pretty overwhelmed." "I was," Janelle admitted. "I am. Losing my grocery store job was terrifying. That paycheck, as small as it was, covered a significant portion of our rent and food expenses. Without it," she trailed off, the reality too stark to voice. "That's why we're here," Adrian said gently, "to talk about alternatives that might work better for you and Caleb. Let me tell you about the receptionist position, and you can decide if it's something you're interested in." "This Kaif. For the next 30 minutes, Adrian described the job in detail. The receptionist role involved answering phones, greeting clients and visitors, managing Adrian's schedule and meeting coordination, handling basic correspondence, and providing general administrative support to the executive team. It was Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, with an hour lunch break. The salary was nearly double what Janelle had been making at the grocery store, enough to cover rent, food, and other basic expenses without requiring a second job. But what made Janelle's breath catch were the benefits: full health insurance including dental and vision, paid vacation and sick days, and most importantly, a childcare assistance program that would subsidize quality daycare costs. "We have a partnership with several excellent childcare centers in the area," Adrian explained. "The company pays 75% of the cost, employees cover 25%. It's part of our commitment to supporting working parents. I believe people perform better at their jobs when they're not constantly stressed about their children's well-being." "This sounds too good to be true," Janelle said honestly. "Adrian, I need to ask directly, why are you doing this? You met me once in a cafe for less than an hour. You don't know if I'm qualified or reliable or even a good person. Why take this chance on me?" Adrian was quiet for a moment, considering his answer carefully. "Do you remember what we talked about in the cafe? About how my success feels empty because I don't have meaningful personal connections? How everyone sees my money before they see me? You and Caleb reminded me what genuine human connection feels like. You talked to me like I was just a person, not an opportunity. That's rare in my world, Janelle." He leaned forward slightly. "But beyond that, I recognize that our economic system often traps people in circumstances that don't reflect their actual capabilities or worth. You're working 2 jobs while raising a child alone. That's incredible work ethic and responsibility. But the jobs available to you without a college degree don't pay enough to actually support a family, which forces you into this unsustainable situation of working yourself to exhaustion while barely surviving. That's not right. I have resources that could break that cycle for you. Why wouldn't I use them?" "Most wealthy people don't think that way," Janelle observed. "Maybe they should," Adrian said simply. "Janelle, I'm not offering you charity. I'm offering you a real job that requires real skills and comes with real expectations. You'll need to be punctual, professional, capable of learning quickly, and able to interact courteously with everyone from construction workers to corporate executives. Can you do those things?" "Yes," Janelle said with conviction. "I can absolutely do those things." "Then the job is yours if you want it. When can you start?" "Monday?" Janelle suggested, hardly believing this was happening. "I need to give notice at my cleaning job, but I can do that over the weekend." "Monday works perfectly," Adrian agreed. "Patricia will handle all the onboarding paperwork, W-4 forms, direct deposit information, benefits enrollment, everything. She'll also give you information about our partner childcare centers so you can tour them and choose one for Caleb." They stood, and Adrian extended his hand. Janelle shook it, feeling the firm warmth of his grip, the solidity of this opportunity becoming real. "Thank you, Adrian. I promise I won't let you down." "I'm not worried," Adrian said with a smile. "Something tells me you're going to exceed every expectation." Over the weekend, Janelle moved through a blur of activity, giving notice at her cleaning job. Her supervisor was sorry to lose her but understanding, touring 3 childcare centers and choosing one that Caleb seemed most comfortable in, organizing clothes and preparing mentally for this dramatic shift in their circumstances. Sunday night, after putting Caleb to bed, Janelle sat in her small living room and allowed herself to cry, not from despair this time, but from overwhelming relief and gratitude. One kind stranger, one moment of compassion in a cafe, that's all it had taken to completely transform their lives. Monday morning, Janelle arrived at Cole Construction Group at 7:45, wanting to be early rather than risk being late. Patricia greeted her warmly and spent the first hour walking her through office systems, phone protocols, computer programs she'd need to use, and the general expectations for the role. "You'll get the hang of it quickly," Patricia assured her, "and everyone here is friendly and willing to help if you have questions. Don't be afraid to ask." The work itself was more complex than Janelle had anticipated, juggling multiple phone lines, keeping track of Adrian's constantly shifting schedule, coordinating meeting logistics, greeting visitors with professional warmth. But it was also manageable, and by the end of the first week, Janelle was starting to feel competent rather than overwhelmed. What surprised her most was how kind everyone was. The construction crews who came through treated her with respect. The executives appreciated her efficiency, and Adrian himself made a point of checking in regularly, not hovering or micromanaging, but genuinely wanting to know how she was adjusting and if she needed any additional support. "How's Caleb liking his new daycare?" Adrian asked one afternoon when things were slow. "He loves it," Janelle reported with a smile. "They have a great outdoor play area, and he's made friends already. I can't tell you what a relief it is to drop him off somewhere I trust, where I know he's safe and happy and learning, rather than constantly scrambling for unreliable babysitting or bringing him to inappropriate work environments." "That's wonderful," Adrian said warmly. "And how are you liking the work so far?" "It's challenging but good," Janelle said honestly. "There's a lot to learn, but I feel like I'm starting to get the rhythm of it. And Adrian, thank you, not just for the job, but for treating me like a professional, like someone capable of growth, rather than just someone you're helping out of pity." "I told you," Adrian said, "this isn't charity. You're earning this position through your competence and work ethic. I'm just glad I could facilitate the opportunity." 3 months into her new role, Janelle had become an integral part of the office. She'd mastered the complex phone system, learned to anticipate Adrian's needs before he voiced them, developed friendly relationships with regular clients and contractors, and generally made herself indispensable. Patricia had commented multiple times that Janelle was the best receptionist they'd had in years. But beyond professional competence, something else was developing: a friendship between Janelle and Adrian that went beyond typical employer-employee dynamics. They'd fall into easy conversations during slow moments, talking about everything from current events to their childhoods to their dreams and fears. Adrian started inviting Janelle and Caleb to company events, summer picnics, holiday parties, casual gatherings where his employees brought their families. Janelle was careful not to read too much into this growing friendship. Adrian was kind to everyone, she reminded herself. His attention toward her wasn't romantic interest, it was just his naturally generous nature, combined with the bond they'd formed in that initial cafe meeting. She was his employee, someone he'd helped out of genuine compassion, but not someone he'd ever see as a potential romantic partner, given their vastly different social and economic positions. Or so she told herself, even as her heart started racing when Adrian entered a room, even as she found herself looking forward to their conversations more than anything else in her day. 6 months after starting at Cole Construction Group, Janelle received her first employee review. Patricia conducted the formal evaluation, but Adrian joined them for the feedback session. "Janelle, your performance has exceeded every expectation," Patricia said warmly. "You're professional, efficient, friendly, and you've integrated into this office better than any receptionist we've had. We'd like to offer you a raise, 15% increase to your current salary, and discuss potential paths for advancement if you're interested in growing with the company." Janelle felt tears threatening yet again. A raise? Already? And advancement opportunities? "You've earned it," Adrian said firmly. "Janelle, you're capable of far more than answering phones and greeting visitors. If you're interested, we could look at assistant positions in various departments: operations, project management, business development. You'd need some additional training, but I think you have the aptitude and work ethic to succeed in any of those areas." "I'd love that," Janelle said, hardly believing this was her life now. "Any growth opportunity you're willing to invest in, I'm interested in pursuing." "Excellent," Patricia said. "Let's schedule some informational meetings with department heads so you can learn what each area entails and decide what interests you most." After the review ended and Patricia left, Adrian remained, something obviously on his mind. "Janelle, can I ask you something personal? And please tell me if I'm overstepping." "Of course," Janelle said, curious and slightly nervous. "Are you dating anyone?" Adrian asked. then quickly added, "I'm asking because several of my construction crew have mentioned being interested in asking you out, and I wanted to know if you'd be receptive before I either encouraged or discouraged them." So, Janelle felt her heart sink slightly, so Adrian was trying to set her up with other people, which confirmed he had no personal romantic interest in her. "I'm not dating anyone," she said, keeping her voice neutral. "I've been focused on Caleb and work, but I appreciate you checking before giving anyone encouragement." "Would you be interested in dating if the right person expressed interest?" Adrian persisted. "I suppose," Janelle said carefully. "Though honestly, Adrian, I'm in no rush. Caleb and I are finally stable and happy. I'm not eager to introduce complexity that could jeopardize that." "That makes sense," Adrian said, nodding. "But hypothetically, what would the right person look like for you? What qualities would matter?" Janelle thought carefully about her answer. "Kindness," she finally said. "Someone who treats people well regardless of their position or what they can offer. Someone who would be good to Caleb, who understands that being with me means being part of our little family. Someone genuine and honest who values me for who I am, rather than what I look like or what I can provide." "Why are you asking?" "Just trying to understand what to look for," Adrian said, his expression unreadable. "Thanks for being honest with me." 1 year after their cafe meeting, Adrian invited Janelle and Caleb to dinner at a nice restaurant, just the three of them, not a company event or group outing. "I wanted to commemorate the anniversary of the day we met," Adrian explained when extending the invitation. "That day in the cafe changed my life, and I'd like to celebrate that if you're comfortable joining me." "Of course we'll come," Janelle agreed, touched by the gesture, even as she tried not to read romantic significance into what was probably just Adrian's characteristic thoughtfulness. The restaurant Adrian chose was elegant but not stuffy, with a children's menu that made Caleb feel included rather than tolerated. Over dinner, they reminisced about that rainy afternoon, when Janelle had nervously approached a stranger's table asking to sit down. "I almost didn't come over to your table," Janelle confessed. "You looked so wealthy and important, and I felt so out of place. I convinced myself you'd say no or look at me with judgment." "I'm so glad you found the courage to ask anyway," Adrian said sincerely. "Janelle, meeting you and Caleb reminded me what actually matters in life. You showed me that genuine connection is possible if you're willing to see people beyond their circumstances or social positions. This past year, getting to know you, watching you thrive professionally, seeing Caleb grow into such a bright, happy child, it's been one of the best years of my life." "It's been the best year of mine," Janelle admitted. "You literally saved us, Adrian. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't called you that night. Probably lost our apartment, ended up in a shelter or worse. Instead, we're stable and secure and actually building a future. I can never adequately thank you for that." "You don't need to thank me," Adrian said. "You've brought far more to my life than I've brought to yours. You've given me friendship, genuine connection, reminders about what matters beyond business success. That's invaluable, Janelle." After dinner, as they walked to Adrian's car, he'd insisted on picking them up rather than making them take public transportation. Caleb was holding both adults' hands, swinging between them happily. "This is nice," Caleb announced. "Like a family." Janelle felt her face heat with embarrassment. "Caleb, sweetie, we're not." "He's right, though," Adrian said quietly. "It does feel like family. You two have become family to me this past year, even if not in the traditional sense." Janelle looked at Adrian over Caleb's head, seeing something in his expression that made her pulse quicken. But before she could respond, Caleb demanded to be lifted so he could see something in a shop window, and the moment passed. 18 months after their cafe meeting, Cole Construction Group held its annual holiday party. The event was formal employees encouraged to bring dates or spouses, held at a nice hotel with dinner and dancing. Janelle had been looking forward to it until Adrian mentioned casually that he'd be bringing a date a woman named Victoria he'd been seeing for the past month. Janelle felt something painful twist in her chest, but forced herself to smile and respond enthusiastically. Of course, Adrian was dating. He was wealthy, successful, attractive, kind. Why wouldn't he have romantic options? The fact that Janelle had developed feelings for him over the past year and a half didn't obligate him to reciprocate. She attended the party alone, having arranged for Mrs. Chen, whose hip had healed and who'd resumed occasionally watching Caleb to babysit. Janelle wore a simple black dress she'd bought specifically for this event, wanting to look professional but not trying too hard. Victoria, when Janelle met her, was exactly what she'd expected: polished, educated, from Adrian's social class, someone who fit naturally into his world in ways Janelle never would. She was perfectly pleasant to Janelle, treating her with friendly distance appropriate for her boss's employee. Watching Adrian and Victoria together over dinner, seeing how easily they conversed about travel and cultural events and people they both knew, Janelle felt the gulf between her own life and Adrian's with painful clarity. They lived in different worlds. The friendship they developed was real, but it would never be more than that. Adrian needed someone like Victoria, someone who could match his educational background and social status, who could be a true partner in his world rather than someone he'd helped out of compassion. Near the end of the evening, Adrian found Janelle standing alone on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. "You okay?" he asked with concern. "You've seemed quiet tonight." "I'm fine," Janelle said, forcing brightness into her voice. "Just taking a breather. Victoria seems lovely, by the way. You two seem very compatible." "She's nice," Adrian agreed, but something in his tone was less than enthusiastic. "Smart, accomplished, from a similar background. Everything that makes sense on paper." "But," Janelle prompted, hearing the unspoken hesitation. "But she's not," Adrian trailed off, shaking his head. "Never mind. That's not fair to Victoria. She's exactly what I should want." "Should want versus actually want are two different things," Janelle observed quietly. "Yes," Adrian agreed, "they are." "Janelle, can I ask you something that might be completely inappropriate?" "You can ask anything," Janelle said, her heart rate increasing. "Do you ever think about that day in the cafe?" Adrian asked. "About how everything changed from that single interaction? Do you ever wonder if there was more happening than just you needing a place to sit and me offering to buy lunch?" "What do you mean?" Janelle asked, though part of her knew exactly what he meant. "I mean that from the moment I looked up and saw you standing there with Caleb, something shifted for me," Adrian said, his voice quiet but intense. "You weren't just someone asking for a seat. You were someone I immediately wanted to know, to help, to be around, and every interaction since has reinforced that initial feeling. Janelle, I've been trying for 18 months to see you as just an employee or just a friend, but I can't anymore. I have feelings for you, romantic feelings, and I needed to tell you that even though the timing is terrible and the situation is complicated." Janelle stared at him, hardly believing what she was hearing. "Adrian, you're literally here with a date who's perfect for you, who matches your background and lifestyle. Why are you telling me this now?" "Because seeing Victoria tonight made me realize I was dating her for the wrong reasons," Adrian admitted. "I was dating someone who made sense on paper rather than following what my heart actually wants. And what my heart wants is you, Janelle. It's wanted you since that cafe, but I've been too scared to acknowledge it because of our professional relationship and the power dynamics and fear that I was confusing gratitude or attraction to your kindness with genuine romantic feelings. And now," Janelle whispered. "Now I'm certain," Adrian said. "I'm in love with you. Not with the idea of you, not with some savior complex about rescuing you, but with the actual, complicated, wonderful person you are. I love your strength and your humor and your dedication to Caleb and the way you see people clearly. I love talking with you and spending time with you, and the way Caleb calls me Mr. Adrian, like I'm something special in his life. Janelle, I'm in love with you, and I needed you to know that even if you don't feel the same way." "I do feel the same way," Janelle admitted, tears streaming down her face now. "I've been in love with you for months, Adrian, but I convinced myself it was impossible because of our different backgrounds and because you were my boss, and because why would someone like you ever want someone like me?" "Someone like you is exactly what I want," Adrian said firmly, moving closer. "Someone genuine and kind and strong and real. Janelle, I don't care about different backgrounds or social status or any of that. I care about you. I want to build something with you and Caleb if you'll let me." "What about Victoria?" Janelle asked practically, even as hope bloomed in her chest. "I'll end things with her tonight," Adrian said. "It's not fair to her to continue dating when my heart is elsewhere. And Janelle, I know this is complicated because of work. If you want to transfer to a different department to avoid the boss-employee dynamic, we can arrange that. Or if you want to keep things professional and just explore this personally, we can do that too. Whatever makes you comfortable, whatever lets us pursue this without you feeling pressured or compromised." "Can I kiss you?" Janelle asked, all her careful restraint finally breaking. "Please," Adrian breathed. Their first kiss was sweet and desperate, and full of 18 months of suppressed longing finally being released. When they broke apart, both were breathless and slightly teary. "Only if you eat too," Janelle said with a watery laugh, remembering Adrian's first words to her in the cafe. "What?" Adrian asked, confused. "That's what you said when I asked to sit at your table, that I could only sit if I ate too. You insisted on feeding us even though we were strangers. That kindness, that seeing us as people worthy of care, that's when I started falling for you, Adrian, even though I didn't let myself acknowledge it for a long time." "Then yes," Adrian said, smiling. "Only if you eat too. Only if we share this life together, Janelle. You and me and Caleb. That's what I want." "That's what I want too," Janelle admitted. "It's terrifying and wonderful, and I still can't quite believe this is real. But yes, that's exactly what I want." They stood together on that balcony, holding each other, both understanding that something significant had shifted, that the connection forged in a cafe over hot chocolate and grilled cheese had evolved into something profound and lasting. That sometimes love grew from the simplest seeds, a moment of kindness, a willingness to help, a genuine seeing of another person's worth. And that the best love stories weren't about grand gestures or dramatic moments, but about showing up consistently with care and respect, about building trust over time, about choosing each other day after day until the choosing became as natural as breathing. 2 years after that rainy afternoon in the cafe, Adrian and Janelle stood together in the doorway of their new home, a comfortable house in a family-friendly neighborhood with a yard for Caleb to play in, 3 bedrooms so everyone had their own space, and a kitchen large enough for family dinners. They'd moved in together 6 months ago after a year of dating carefully and intentionally, making sure their relationship was solid before making such a significant commitment. "Can you believe this is our life?" Janelle asked, leaning against Adrian as they watched Caleb run through the backyard chasing butterflies. "2 years ago, we were strangers in a cafe. Now we have a home together. Best cafe visit of my life," Adrian said, kissing the top of her head. "Though I maintain that you walked up to my table because the universe knew we were meant to meet that day. Or because everywhere else was full and yours was the only available seat," Janelle teased. "But I'll accept the romantic interpretation." Caleb, now 5 years old and thriving in kindergarten, had adapted beautifully to Adrian, becoming part of their family. He called Adrian by his first name, understanding that Adrian wasn't replacing a father but adding something new and wonderful to their lives. Adrian had been patient and consistent in building trust with Caleb, never pushing but always showing up, attending school events, helping with homework, playing endless games, reading bedtime stories with the same gentle patience he'd shown that first day in the cafe. At work, Janelle had transferred to the business development department 6 months into their relationship, wanting to avoid the complications of dating her direct boss. She'd discovered she had a natural talent for client relations and project coordination, and had been promoted twice in the 18 months since the transfer. She was now a junior project manager, overseeing small renovation contracts and working toward eventually managing larger construction projects. "I'm proud of you," Adrian told her frequently. "Not because of anything I did, but because you took every opportunity and ran with it. You've built this career through your own competence and work ethic. I couldn't have built anything without the initial opportunity you provided," Janelle always countered. "Adrian, I was cleaning offices at night and stocking shelves during the day. There was no path forward from those circumstances. You opened a door I couldn't have opened myself. We helped each other," Adrian would insist. "You reminded me what actually matters, genuine connection, using resources to help others. being part of a family. That's worth far more than any career opportunities I facilitated. 3 years after their cafe meeting, Adrian took Janelle and Caleb back to the Riverside Cafe, the same place where their story had begun. It was a rainy afternoon again, just like that first day, and Adrian had made sure their original corner table was available. "Remember what I told you the first day?" Adrian asked as they settled into their seats, Caleb already eagerly looking at the menu for his favorite grilled cheese. Janelle smiled, remembering this exact conversation from their 1-year anniversary. "Only if you eat too." "Exactly," Adrian said. He reached across the table, taking her hand. "Janelle, that first day, I insisted you eat because I could see you were struggling and I had resources to help. I couldn't bear the thought of you and Caleb sitting here hungry when I could so easily provide a meal." "I know," Janelle said softly. "That kindness meant everything to me. But what I've learned over the past 3 years," Adrian continued, "is that it wasn't just about providing a meal. It was about insisting that you not face life alone, that you accept support and connection, that you let someone care about your well-being. Only if you eat too was really me saying, let me be part of your life in some small way." He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket, opening it to reveal a simple but beautiful diamond ring. "So, I want to say it again, with a bigger commitment behind it. Janelle Brooks, only if you eat too. Only if we share this life together, if we're partners in everything, if we're family in the fullest sense. Will you marry me?" Janelle felt tears streaming down her face. "Yes, absolutely yes." Caleb, who'd been watching this exchange with wide eyes, suddenly cheered. "We're going to be a real family now. Can I have a baby brother?" Both adults laughed through their tears. "We'll discuss that later," Janelle told her son. "But yes, baby, we're going to be a real family now." They married 6 months later in a small ceremony attended by close friends and family. Caleb served as ring bearer, proudly walking down the aisle carrying the rings with utmost seriousness. Patricia from Adrian's office attended with tears in her eyes, having watched their relationship develop from that first interview when Janelle had arrived desperate and frightened. Several of Janelle's co-workers from Cole Construction Group came, celebrating the colleague who'd started as a receptionist and had become a valued member of their team. In his vows, Adrian said, "Janelle, 3.5 years ago, you walked up to my table in a cafe and asked if you could sit down. That simple question changed my entire life. You showed me what genuine connection feels like, what it means to be part of a family, what actually matters beyond business success and wealth accumulation. You gave me Caleb, who I love as if he were my own son. You gave me purpose beyond just making money. You gave me a reason to come home at night that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with love. I promise to keep saying, only if you eat too for the rest of our lives, to insist that we share everything, face everything together, build this family as true partners. I love you, Janelle. Thank you for asking if you could sit at my table that rainy day." In her vows, Janelle said, "Adrian, when I walked into that cafe, I was at the end of my rope, exhausted, overwhelmed, barely surviving, afraid I was failing my son. I saw you sitting alone and almost didn't approach because you looked so wealthy and important, and I felt so out of place. But I gathered my courage and asked if we could sit, and you didn't just say, yes, you insisted we eat too. That insistence, that refusal to let us sit there hungry when you could help, revealed your character completely. You've been insisting I not face life alone ever since. You offered me a job when I was desperate. You believed in my potential when I'd stopped believing in it myself. You loved my son when you had no obligation to. You built a relationship with patience and respect, never using your wealth or position to pressure me. Adrian, you saved us, and then you loved us. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that love, being your partner in everything, building this family with the same care and intentionality you've always shown. I love you. Thank you for saying, only if you eat too." 5 years after their cafe meeting, Janelle gave birth to twin daughters Grace and Hope, who Adrian insisted should have names reflecting what Janelle had brought into his life. Caleb, now 7, was thrilled to have baby sisters, immediately appointing himself their protector and helper. "I'm the big brother," Caleb announced to anyone who would listen. "I have to teach them everything and keep them safe." Watching Caleb gently hold his newborn sisters, Adrian felt overwhelming gratitude for the family they'd built. This not his business success or his wealth or any professional achievement, this was what actually mattered. Coming home to chaos and laughter, and children who needed him. Having a partner who challenged him and supported him in equal measure. Building a life that had meaning beyond just accumulating more money or completing more projects. "Happy?" Janelle asked one evening, when the twins were 6 months old, finding Adrian standing in the doorway of their nursery watching the babies sleep. "Impossibly happy," Adrian admitted. "Sometimes I can't believe this is my life, that you and Caleb and Grace and Hope are my family. 5 years ago, I was successful but lonely, surrounded by people but genuinely connected to almost no one. Now I have everything that actually matters." "Because you were kind to a stranger in a cafe," Janelle said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Because you saw a struggling single mother and chose compassion instead of judgment. Because you said, 'Only if you eat too,' and meant it." 10 years after their cafe meeting, Cole Construction Group held a major celebration marking the company's 30th anniversary. Adrian, still CEO but increasingly focused on work-life balance, used the event to announce a new initiative, a program providing job opportunities, childcare support, and career development for single parents struggling to make ends meet. 10 years ago, Adrian told the assembled employees, clients, and community partners, "I met someone who changed my life completely. A single mother named Janelle Brooks walked into a cafe where I was sitting alone and asked if she could sit at my table. I said yes, but only if she ate too." That interaction, that simple moment of sharing a meal with strangers, reminded me what actually matters in life and business. He smiled at Janelle, who was sitting in the front row with their children. Janelle joined Cole Construction Group shortly after that meeting, starting as our receptionist. She's now a senior project manager, having worked her way through multiple promotions based entirely on her competence and work ethic. But more importantly, she showed me that our company has a responsibility beyond just building structures and making profit. We have a responsibility to build opportunities for people who just need a chance. So today, I'm announcing the Only If You Eat Too initiative, Adrian continued. We'll be partnering with social service agencies to identify single parents with strong work ethics but limited opportunities. We'll provide job training, guaranteed employment for qualified candidates, childcare subsidies, and career development support. Because everyone deserves the chance, Janelle got the opportunity to build a stable life and career when someone believes in their potential. The program launched 3 months later, and within 2 years had helped over 100 single parents transition from survival mode service jobs to stable careers with real advancement potential. Janelle volunteered with the program, mentoring participants and sharing her own story of how one kind interaction had transformed her entire life trajectory. The hardest part was accepting help, Janelle told one mentee, a young single father working 3 jobs to support his daughter. "I was so proud, so determined to make it on my own." But accepting Adrian's help wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. It was recognizing that we're not meant to survive alone, that accepting support creates opportunities that benefit everyone. 15 years after their cafe meeting, Janelle and Adrian sat together on their back porch, watching their children play in the yard. Caleb, now 17 and preparing for college, was helping 8-year-old Grace and Hope build an elaborate fort from cardboard boxes. The twins were arguing good-naturedly about architectural design, while Caleb mediated with patient humor he'd learned from Adrian. "Remember when it was just you and Caleb in that tiny apartment?" Adrian asked. "When you were working 2 jobs and barely surviving?" "I remember," Janelle said. "It feels like a lifetime ago and like yesterday simultaneously. Sometimes I still can't believe how much changed from one simple interaction in a cafe." "It wasn't simple, though," Adrian observed. "It required you having the courage to ask for help, me having the willingness to offer it, both of us choosing to build on that initial connection rather than letting it be a one-time kindness. The cafe meeting was the seed, but we had to nurture it into what it became." "True," Janelle agreed. And we're still nurturing it, still choosing each other every day, still saying only if you eat too in 1,000 different ways. 20 years after their cafe meeting, Cole Construction Group held another major celebration, this time marking Adrian's retirement and the transition of CEO responsibilities to Caleb, who joined the company after college and had worked his way through multiple departments, learning every aspect of the business. "I built this company from nothing," Adrian told the assembled crowd. "But what I'm most proud of isn't the buildings we've constructed or the revenue we've generated. I'm proud of the people we've helped through the Only If You Eat Too initiative that's now served over 500 families, through creating a workplace culture that values employees as whole humans with lives beyond work, through demonstrating that business success and social responsibility aren't mutually exclusive." He looked at Caleb, now 32 and confident in his leadership abilities. "And I'm proud that this company will continue under leadership that understands what actually matters." Caleb wasn't born into this family. He came into my life when he was 3 years old, a child whose mother I met by chance in a cafe. But he's my son in every way that counts. And I'm confident he'll lead this company with the same values his mother taught us, both compassion, integrity, commitment to using resources to help others. Caleb gave his own speech, talking about growing up watching Adrian and Janelle build both a business and a family on foundations of kindness and mutual support. "My earliest memory of Adrian is him buying me hot chocolate in a cafe and being patient when I spilled it on his expensive suit," Caleb said. "That patience, that prioritizing people over things, that seeing everyone as worthy of respect regardless of their circumstances, those values have shaped everything about how I'll lead this company." That evening, after the celebration ended, Janelle and Adrian drove to the Riverside Cafe, still in business 20 years later, now a family-owned institution that had become somewhat famous as the cafe where the Cole family love story began. They sat at their corner table, now marked with a small plaque reading, "Reserved for the Coles." 20 years, Janelle said, shaking her head in wonder. 2 decades since I walked in here desperate and exhausted, asking if I could sit at your table." "Best question anyone ever asked me," Adrian said, "though I maintain my response was equally important, only if you eat too." "Why was that response so important to you?" Janelle asked, though she'd heard Adrian's answer before and wanted to hear it again. "Because you were trying to take up as little space as possible," Adrian explained. "You just wanted to sit, to rest for a moment without being a burden. But I could see you were hungry, could see Caleb was cold and tired. I couldn't bear the thought of you sitting there needing food when I could so easily provide it. Insisting you eat too was me insisting you mattered, that your needs mattered, that you deserved care and support. And you've been insisting I matter for 20 years, Janelle said softly. Insisting we face life together, that I accept support, that I'm worthy of love and partnership. Adrian, you didn't just change my circumstances that day, you changed how I saw myself. I went from someone barely surviving to someone building a meaningful career and life. That transformation started because you saw worth in me when I'd stopped seeing it in myself. You had the worth all along, Adrian said firmly. I just had the resources to help you access opportunities that would let that worth flourish. Janelle, you saved me just as much as I saved you. I was lonely and disconnected, surrounded by people but genuinely close to almost no one. You and Caleb reminded me what real connection feels like. You built a family with me. That's worth infinitely more than any career help I provided. They sat together in comfortable silence, both reflecting on the extraordinary journey from that rainy afternoon to this moment. A desperate single mother and a lonely millionaire, brought together by circumstance and kindness, building a love story that had transformed multiple lives beyond just their own. The waitress who'd served them that first day, now the cafe owner after purchasing the business from the original owners, stopped by their table. Your usual, the waitress who'd served them that first day, now the cafe owner, after purchasing the business from the original owners, stopped by their table. Your usual order? She asked with a knowing smile. 2 hot chocolates and a grilled cheese? Please, Janelle said, though Caleb's not here to actually eat the grilled cheese this time. I'll bring it anyway, the owner said warmly. This table has a tradition to maintain. As they waited for their food, Adrian pulled out his phone and showed Janelle a series of photos their life documented over 20 years. The first photo from that initial cafe day, taken by a friend who'd been having lunch there and had captured the moment of Adrian holding Caleb's small hand across the table. Wedding photos, pictures of their children at various ages, family vacations, holiday celebrations, ordinary moments that had become extraordinary because they'd been built on a foundation of genuine love and mutual support. "We built something beautiful," Janelle said, scrolling through the images with tears in her eyes. "From such a simple beginning. The best things always start simply," Adrian observed. "A question. Can I sit here?" An answer. "Only if you eat too." Everything that followed our relationship, our family, the initiative that's helped hundreds of single parents, Caleb taking over the company with your values, guiding him, it all traces back to those simple words exchanged in a moment of need. 25 years after their cafe meeting, Janelle and Adrian celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary, surrounded by their extended family. Caleb was there with his wife and 2 children. The twins, Grace and Hope, now 20, were home from college. The celebration was held at the Cole family home, the same house they'd moved into 23 years ago, now filled with memories and love accumulated over decades. "I want to make a toast," Caleb said, standing with his wine glass raised, "to my mom and Adrian, who showed me what genuine love and partnership look like. Most kids have one example of how relationships should work. I had 2, my mom's fierce independence and strength, and Adrian's patient kindness and support. Together, they taught me that the best partnerships are built on mutual respect, consistent showing up, and choosing each other every single day." He paused, emotion evident in his voice. "But what I'm most grateful for is how they built a family from broken pieces. Mom was a struggling single parent. Adrian was a lonely, successful businessman. I was a 3-year-old kid who'd never known a father figure. None of us were what you'd call traditional family material. But we became family anyway, not through blood or conventional paths, but through choosing to love each other despite and because of our differences." Quote, "Mom taught me that accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom," Caleb continued. "Adrian taught me that having resources comes with responsibility to help others. Together, they showed me that the best life is built on compassion, integrity, and using whatever you have to make other people's lives better. That's the legacy I'm trying to continue at Cole Construction Group. That's the example I'm trying to set for my own children. Thank you, Mom and Adrian, for showing me what actually matters." After the celebration, as guests departed and their house slowly emptied, Janelle and Adrian found themselves alone in their kitchen, the same kitchen where they'd made countless family meals, had countless important conversations, built the daily routines that had become their life. 25 years since the cafe, Janelle said, leaning against the counter. 20 years married, 3 beautiful children, 2 grandchildren so far. Hundreds of families helped through your initiative. Adrian, did you ever imagine this would be our life when I asked to sit at your table? Not even remotely, Adrian admitted. I thought I was just buying lunch for a stranger who needed help. I had no idea that stranger would become my wife, that her son would become my son and eventually CEO of my company, that we'd build a family and a life that would be the most meaningful thing I'd ever accomplish. What's the lesson? Janelle asked. If we were telling our story to someone else, what would we want them to take away from it? Adrian thought carefully. That small acts of kindness have ripple effects we can't predict or measure, that accepting help when you need it creates opportunities for transformation. That love can grow from the simplest seeds if you're willing to nurture it. That family isn't defined by blood or conventional structures, but by choosing to show up for each other consistently. And that only if you eat too is more than just an invitation to share a meal, Janelle added. It's a commitment to not letting people face life alone, to insisting they accept support and care, to building partnerships based on mutual respect and genuine connection rather than just attraction or convenience. Exactly, Adrian agreed. He pulled Janelle into his arms, holding her close. Thank you for asking if you could sit at my table that rainy afternoon. Thank you for accepting help when pride might have kept you silent. Thank you for building this extraordinary life with me. Thank you for saying only if you eat too, Janelle replied. Thank you for seeing worth in me when I'd stopped seeing it in myself. Thank you for loving Caleb as your own. Thank you for being exactly the partner I needed, and more than I ever imagined having. 30 years after their cafe meeting, a full 3 decades since that rainy afternoon, when a desperate single mother had asked a lonely millionaire if she could sit at his table, Janelle and Adrian returned one final time to the Riverside Cafe. Both were older now, grayer, moving more slowly but still together, still choosing each other after all these years. The cafe owner, now elderly herself and preparing to retire, had reserved their corner table with the commemorative plaque. 30 years you've been coming here for anniversaries, she said as they settled into their seats. I'm honored that our little cafe played such an important role in your love story. It's where everything began, Janelle said warmly, where 2 strangers became family. We'll never forget this place. As they sipped, their hot chocolate ordered more for tradition than actual desire for the sweet drink, they reflected on the extraordinary journey their lives had taken from that single moment of connection. If you could go back, Adrian asked, and tell that exhausted single mother who walked in here 30 years ago what her life would become, what would you say? Janelle considered this carefully. I'd tell her that the courage to ask for help, to accept kindness from a stranger, to trust that not everyone with resources has ulterior motives, that courage will change everything. I'd tell her that the little boy whose hand she's holding will grow into an incredible man who'll lead a major company with compassion and integrity. I'd tell her she'll find love again, real love, partnership built on respect and genuine connection. I'd tell her that accepting help isn't giving up or being weak, it's being wise enough to recognize that we're not meant to survive alone. And what would you tell the lonely millionaire? Janelle asked. I'd tell him that genuine connection is worth more than any business success or financial achievement, Adrian said, that the family he'll build with this woman and her son will be the most meaningful accomplishment of his life. That saying only if you eat too, insisting that people accept care and support, will become his guiding philosophy and will help hundreds of families beyond just his own. I tell him to trust his instinct to help, to follow through on the connection he feels in this moment, to be patient and consistent in building trust with someone whose life circumstances are so different from his own. Would knowing the future have helped? Janelle wondered. Probably not, Adrian admitted. We needed to take it one day at a time, one choice at a time, building trust and love gradually, rather than rushing towards some predetermined outcome. The journey was as important as the destination, Janelle. Every conversation, every shared meal, every moment of choosing each other, those created the foundation that sustained us for 30 years. As they prepared to leave the cafe for the last time, the building was being sold and would be demolished to make room for new development. Janelle felt bittersweet sadness. This place had been sacred to them, the literal birthplace of their family. But the cafe was just a building. The love they'd built, the family they'd created, the values they'd lived, those weren't tied to any physical location. They carried those forward wherever they went. Only if you eat too, Adrian said one final time as they stood to leave. Only if you eat too, Janelle echoed, understanding that they'd be saying these words to each other for whatever years they had remaining, that this phrase had become their promise and their philosophy and their way of insisting they face everything together. They walked out of the Riverside Cafe hand in hand, leaving behind the physical space but carrying forward everything that mattered. The love built from kindness, the family formed from broken pieces, the commitment to helping others that had become their legacy, and the simple truth that sometimes the most transformative moments look ordinary. A struggling single mother asking a wealthy stranger if she could sit down, a lonely millionaire responding with kindness and an insistence on sharing rather than just providing. 2 people choosing connection over distance, compassion over judgment, partnership over independence. And from those simple choices, everything extraordinary had followed. The cafe where it all began was gone now, but the story lived on in their children carrying forward their values, in the hundreds of families helped through their initiative, in the love that had sustained them through 3 decades of joy and challenge, and daily choosing to face life together. Only If You Eat Too wasn't just about sharing a meal. It was about insisting that people not face life alone, that accepting help was strength rather than weakness, that genuine partnership meant sharing everything: struggles and triumphs, grief and joy, ordinary moments and extraordinary transformations. And that was the legacy Janelle and Adrian would leave behind. Not buildings constructed or wealth accumulated, but lives transformed through simple kindness, extended and gratefully accepted, through consistent showing up and choosing love day after day, through demonstrating that family is built not by blood or convention, but by the daily choice to care for each other, regardless of circumstances. From a rainy afternoon in a cafe to a lifetime of love and purpose, that was their story. And it proved that sometimes the most important question we can ask is simply, "Can I sit here?" And sometimes the most transformative answer is, "Only if you eat too."